What's up guys? Welcome to AnimeKouhai. If you'd like to help me out, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel.
I had ordered her to stand by with the rest of the 2nd Army Corps, but I guess the demons were all thought communicationing with each other. Her fellow demons boasting about all the murder they committed must have been more than she could stand. But I couldn't have her working solo right then.
A few choice words?
Benimaru asked. He knew Carrera was a primal, but he still dealt with her the same way. Maybe I really was worrying too much.
Yes, I thought I could give them a little nuclear magic as a gift.
She said that with the most endearing smile. John, the original Yellow, sure lived up to her reputation.
Denied.
Came Benimaru's disgusted reply.
Carrera, please be patient until further orders.
Geld added.
Your actions take on meaning only when they're applied at the most critical moment.
Carrera wasn't too happy about that, but she had no intention of disobeying Benimaru. She reluctantly nodded at Geld's rebuke.
All right. I just wanted to show you what I could do, but maybe there's a time when that'll be more effective, huh? I'll sit tight and wait.
Glad she saw things our way. It looked like she respected what Geld had to say. Maybe they were a better pair than I thought.
Carrera, life is about more than going on the rampage, you know. It's only when we become a sword for our leader that we can truly shine.
Yes, Shion, I understand you. Maybe I've been a little too hasty, huh? I'm going to go cool off a little.
Are you really one to talk, Shion? I thought. It was a nice thing to say and all, but coming from her, it sounded so unconvincing. Weren't you the one who wanted to go on a big rampage just now? But let's hold back on that. It'd be a bad idea to rehash the conversation when it was over now. I gave Shion a judgmental frown as Carrera left. So morale definitely wasn't a problem. On our side, we had the forces inside the Labyrinth as well as the rested 2nd Army Corps. Everyone from my top officials to the soldiers deep down the chain of command seemed to be in high spirits, eager to give it their all. They must have heard my orders. The Empire, meanwhile, totaled 700,000 troops. We'd never compete in numbers, but this was quality over quantity. The other side might still have had some strong characters lurking in the background, but we had one killer defense mechanism in the Labyrinth.
The key to victory is gonna lie in the Labyrinth. Veldora, Ramirez, I'm counting on you guys.
Yes, of course. Do not fear. I'll take care of everything.
Right, exactly. We're all backing you up, so you just rest easy.
Their eager replies soothed my heart. The important thing here was how we'd avoid casualties, and luring the enemy into the Labyrinth was the best way to do that. Inside the dungeon, we could reduce the wear and tear on our army down to 0, and that wasn't all. We could also add the monsters of the Labyrinth to our forces, letting us make up for any numerical disadvantages without much hassle. Count the lower-level monsters, and the total number would add up to several 100,000.
Then we'll just have to see how much the Empire believed in Yuki's cajoling, huh?
I said.
Isn't it the other way around? You can't trust him, and that's exactly why he's led them to have their suspicions of him.
Ah, that does make a lot of sense.
I was sure Benimaru was right. If you looked at Yuki as an enemy, he was quite a nuisance. We might have been in a temporary partnership, but there was no way to trust him as an ally. Maybe the feeling was mutual on the Imperial side?
Someone that fishy. Maybe it's safer to have him infiltrate the enemy instead of fight with him as allies.
That was an unusually accurate statement from Shion.
At least we don't have to expend any effort worrying about whether we'll be betrayed.
Benimaru added with a nod.
The Imperials, on the other hand, probably don't consider Yuki to be a complete ally. They'll be wary of him, suspicious of whatever he has to say. In other words, they don't really know how the 60,000 troops by the east exit of Dwargon are going to act. The Empire might make their strike there, so we'd best tell Gazel to be on his guard.
Knowing King Gazel, I don't think we'll need to worry. But no, there's nothing more annoying than an untrustworthy ally. If I were you, I'd be the first to crush him.
I already told King Gazel about Yuki, and like Benimaru said, I'm sure he took all necessary measures without me checking up on him. Our main concern should have been the Empire's main force. Even as we spoke, they were attacking from multiple sides, trying to surround us. The only thing left in our city was that huge gate, so there was no great need to panic, although we still couldn't help being nervous. My main concern was that they'd skip Tempest entirely and instead attack Farminus, the new kingdom established by Yam. He had people like Raisin and Grusith around to defend it, but that nation honestly didn't have the wherewithal to wage large-scale war at the moment. We were still in the middle of providing them support as they reformed their ways, so we really didn't want it to become a battlefield. It'd be up to us to provide reinforcements, of course, and that'd really complicate matters as far as I was concerned. So along those lines, we were glad it didn't seem to be turning out that way. Regardless, we couldn't let our guards down. If the Empire didn't trust Yuki and instead opted to whiz right by us and into Bloomond, then we'd have Geld's force attack them from the rear. It'd be easy to send the Second Corps over with my teleport spell. But we'd still have a ground war on our hands. The Second Corps would get far less support from the Labyrinth, and I was sure it'd be a tough battle. We should have been able to recruit a good number of volunteers from the Labyrinth, but even so, we couldn't force monsters out of there if they didn't want to go, so the numbers would have to be smaller. Besides, if we fought on the ground, we couldn't leverage the Labyrinth's features at all, and thus we'd have to be prepared for serious casualties. Ideally, we really wanted the enemy to enter the Labyrinth. Bringing the battle there, in Benimaru's eyes, was both the safest route and the one most likely to succeed. If we fought on the ground, we'd lose our advantage in the Labyrinth. We'd have to fight them head-on, in a level playing field. Which was how it usually was, of course, but in war, the key to victory was all in building an edge for yourself. I didn't think the Labyrinth was exactly fair or whatever, but if we won, then hey, we were in the right. So while, hopefully, the Labyrinth would serve as the main battlefield, our basic strategy was still the same even if we fought on the ground. Job 1 for us was to ferret out the strongest fighters on the opposing side, and just like how we used the goblins as bait for that before, we'd use Geld's force for that this time. That common core was in each of Benimaru's proposed strategies. Really, I guess they were doing this to protect me, their supreme general. I care deeply for all my friends here, and Benimaru and the rest put me first just as much, or even more, in fact. I didn't want them to get killed for my sake, but Benimaru's much more of a tactician than an amateur like me. He kept damage to almost nothing in the previous battle, even. So as long as I left everything to him, I could just sit back in my chair and relax. That, and I wanted to keep trying to make people feel secure in relying on me. We had set up a large gate on the ground in order to make it easier for Imperial troops to come storming in, but looking back, maybe that felt a little too deliberate? I, at least, was a bit worried they might think it was a trap, but my fears were unfounded. I didn't know if someone out there was granting wishes for me today, but in the end, it turned out just as I had hoped.
The enemy's fanning out in front of the main gate,
the operator reported. On the big screen, we could see rows of Imperial soldiers lined up in an orderly fashion. If Argos was presenting this to us, it had to be true, but Soei's group was monitoring them as well, so this definitely wasn't illusory magic or whatnot. The Empire had clearly taken the bait, and all 700,000 of them were on the scene, not bothering to stick to stealth any longer. Their attempt at intimidation, maybe, not that it'd work on us. We had zero intention of surrendering by now. Maybe we'd run to fight another day, but capitulation was never gonna happen. Besides, we couldn't hope for a more ideal setup.
We've won.
I muttered to myself.
Yes.
Benimaru briskly replied.
We have.
Factually speaking, indeed, we were already guaranteed a tactical victory. Once we were all in the Labyrinth, we'd take 0 damage. As long as we took our time, we were guaranteed to win. Beyond that, as long as they didn't have some kind of unimaginable champion who could beat a demon lord, we had an insurmountable advantage.
Good thing those greedy bastards let the Labyrinth catch 'em.
Very true. I thought Sir Rimmeru's bait was a little too obvious, but I'm glad they took it for us.
Yeah, well, looks like you did a good job on it, Gadra.
The enemy was now revealing their full extent to us. If they had spread them out a little more around the forest, we might have been anxious about the stronger among them hiding out somewhere. Spreading your forces thin is generally a bad idea, I think, but right there, having them all together like that actually helped us a lot. I imagined they were gonna start filing into the Labyrinth soon, so really, the only question was how much of the army they'd keep on the surface.
Well, either way, I imagine it's not strategically sound for the Empire to skip our nation. If they decide to blockade this Labyrinth gate and keep marching west, that's trouble, but...
Yeah, if they left, say, 100,000 out of 700,000, that'd be enough to surround the gate easy.
Then, if the remaining forces marched over to the western nations, they'd have little to worry about behind them. If that happened, by the way, we'd still be able to transport ourselves in and out, but our destinations would be restricted to places we had spent some extent of time in before, and we couldn't access any place with space freezing barriers over it. Practically speaking, if we could undo the seal on the entrance to the dwelling of the spirits, Ramirez's old haunt, we could come and go through that. Still, though, we'd essentially be trapped in the Labyrinth, left helpless as we watched them overrun the western nations, and if it came to that, we'd have to find a way to force ourselves out and attack. So in the end, it might wind up turning into a ground war anyway. But we couldn't avoid that, really. So before that happened, we'd want to cut down the enemy's strength as much as we could.
Are we going to send a warning to their ground forces?
Yeah, maybe we can agitate them into deploying more soldiers inside.
Veldora and Ramirez had some interesting opinions on this.
You know, there's something to be said for that. But nah, no warning.
I said.
No? Why not?
Veldora asked.
You know about the words we put on the gate already, right, Ramirez?
Oh, right, there was that.
We had actually carved a message on the massive gate. It read, "Through these gates, the weak are unworthy to pass." So how were they gonna react to that?
I'd love to see what they do when they read it,
said Ramirez.
Indeed, if it were me, I'd snap and come storming through the gate, although, I'd nonetheless keep my troops at bay,
added Benimaru. I'm sure that was exactly what Benimaru would do. Trap or not, he'd totally ram his way in.
I would pay it no mind. I am all powerful.
Yeah, sure, Veldora. I didn't ask you.
Me, I dunno. If Beretta insisted on going, then I guess I'd follow along, that kind of thing.
Ramirez. If you'd be too scared of it, then don't press your luck, okay? And you name-dropping Beretta as just making him snicker.
If anyone is foolish enough to ignore that warning, they forfeit their right to Sir Rimuru mercy. They have no right to complain about what happens.
I didn't know why he was looking so gleeful about it, but yeah, Diablo was correct. This message did have the nuance of a warning, after all.
Of course, if they're too much of a coward to go through the gate, they deserve to be in this battlefield in the first place. We must annihilate them all and make them understand the folly of antagonizing Sir Rimuru.
Shion? If you put it that way, then we're all gonna have to fight ourselves, aren't we? Can you maybe think a little before you provide advice in the future? You're making Geld crack up. Really, though, the rest of my main staff were of similar minds. Super motivated, all of them, and super eager to dedicate more victories to me. Testarossa and Ultima donated a whole bunch of souls. Whether they knew that or not, everybody here seemed eager to follow in the pair's footsteps. Testarossa, or demons in general, really, apparently have a taste for the residual emotions left in each of those souls. There are assorted ways of consuming these, but Testarossa told me she loves to see faces frozen in fear the most. That smile of hers really is scary. I probably would have been petrified pre-reincarnation, but by this point, well, that's how it is. Which is fine and good for demons, but what about the other monsters?
That's it for this video, guys. Thank you for always watching my videos and supporting my channel. Shout out to the new members of AnimeKouhai supporters: QWERTY Stan, Srinan Dudi, Chris Ben, JDZ2040, Owen Thompson, Sam Ward, Ethan Madison, Juan Ignacio, Jason Martin, Miss LW Hernandez. Thank you so much for helping out. I'll see you guys in the next video.